Welcome to The Ripple, where extraordinary women executives share their turning points, growing pains, breakthroughs, and triumphs to help you show up with confidence. I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, and today we're joined by the driven Krissy Manzano, CEO and co-founder of Blueprint Expansion. She's also the host of the Talent GTM podcast and Blueprint Roundtable podcast. Today, she's sharing a reframe on what it means for women to have it all. Well, Krissy, thank you so much for being with us. It's a real pleasure to have you, and I'm so excited for us to all learn from you today.
I hope I'm able to give lots of nuggets. So thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here on your podcast.
Absolutely. I don't doubt it one bit. We're all going to get a lot of advice from you today. I can feel it. Before we get started, I would love to hear a little bit about the work that you're doing with Blueprint Expansion and what you love about it.
Yeah. So co-founded Blueprint Expansion with my business partner, Chuck Brotman, in January of 2020. Great time to start a business. And we are a boutique go-to-market recruiting firm. I want to actually say we're one of the first to label ourselves as go-to-market before it got trendy, but hiring for sales, customer success, and marketing positions, entry level to senior. Industry agnostic, really more around B2B, but we work with a ton of SaaS companies, just given that was who we worked for as sales leaders prior to starting the firm. And what I love about it, which the irony here is that I never wanted to be a recruiter. I actually, when we started our business with a different version, I had actually said, like, if we ever have to just do recruiting, like this business is done. I didn't really have a respect for it. And, the full circle that has come around is just, I've always enjoyed hiring people and building really great teams and creating great cultures and just seeing how non-traditional talent or diversified talent can just be so impactful in an organization. And so that was really fun for me to do on that, being an operator. Now, what I really enjoy about it is that I get to help other companies do that. And also too, owning, my own business and being able to, you know, while there can be challenges with anything that you do, and there's definitely challenges that come with being an entrepreneur. There's also a lot of beauty with it of just being able to execute and not have to focus on fixing other people's challenges above me, right? And being able to really kind of be creative and drive, the path and the vision that I see forward.
What's interesting about what you said is talking about solving other people's problems by working for someone else and, those problems of the people above you, as opposed to just getting to solve your own problems and be creative about those problems in your business. I think that so many people think about starting your own business as more work, and in
Yep.
many respects, maybe it is, but there's also this big alleviation of work of like making other people's priorities your problem.
100%. 100%. I mean, it's everything that I learned about being an entrepreneur before I became one. Maybe not everything, that's probably too big of a statement, but a lot of it is wrong.
Mm,
My personal experience. This idea that you have to sacrifice everything to be successful. You have to be willing to risk it all in order to have a shot and a seat at the table. That you have to be obsessed, that you can't have care and emotions outside of your business. Your family, friends, your people, they all have to come second, third, whatever that list is, in order to drive you to make really hard decisions. I've never believed I did originally, that's why I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. But when I started getting closer to the top and seeing the folks and really what was driving their business was all the people underneath them. And the fact that they had a good idea, mostly males. And not to say this is harsh, but they had a good idea and they just happened to know someone at a VC firm that was willing to invest in it. And listen, if you have a good idea and you get millions of dollars to invest in it, if you hire the right people, you can be pretty successful without having or doing a lot of great leadership things and having great vision. Right. And so it's something that's been, I wanted to prove out, but it's something that's been very eye opening to see how you can have a really balanced life and focus more on executing, right? Versus again, fixing all these things that a lot of times we have founders that have zero leadership experience. And it's something I've talked to a lot of VCs and PEs about, like, my founder doesn't have any leadership experience. And I think when we look at this whole tech boom and all these challenges, these overvaluations, this overhiring, everything, it's like we really need to take a step back and go, why are we investing in people and asking them to do something they have no skills to do? Right? I'm not saying you don't
Yeah.
invest in the idea, but the structure of like, you have a great idea, you're creating this great product. That's great. But why are you hoping that by with a little bit of mentorship, they're all of a sudden going to become this great leader? Like, you would never look at an SDR and be like, can you run a company? Right. From a corporation, if that was their first job out of college. And so, I think that's where we have a lot of misses in leadership, and we've almost glamorized how, well, they're an entrepreneur, so they get to act like that. Right.
Yeah, well, I think we have a very singular archetype of what a founder looks like, especially.
Mhm.
And of course, we're only now starting to come out of the phase of kind of the boy genius
Mhm.
who, yeah, is like pushed into the leadership of a much larger company because it gets all these resources. And he's not only the founder and like the technical, ideator, but the leader, the visionary leader. We're only just coming out of that, but there's still such a pervasive culture of hustle and this
Mhm.
singularity of focus, and it's the center of the universe in their life. And I'm really intrigued, you talked about how in your experience of becoming a founder that a lot of those things were just myths, or they really weren't the only way to approach being a founder. What was it that you learned that helped you balance all those things?
I've always been really good at being efficient. I've gotten better actually since becoming a parent, but just time management and focusing on outcomes, right?
Mhm.
Versus just tasks to feel good. I think what I see a lot of leaders or founders do is they want to, okay, I'll go make all these calls, or let's just throw money at this and see if it works. And we just have to try, and we have to keep going, keep going. And it's just everyone's running, soccer analogy, everyone's running to the soccer ball together. There's no strategy, no patience, there's nothing there. And so I think always observing, right? And seeing that those things work, regardless of if you're a startup or experienced company, and being able to put that to practice, was really valuable. Right. And I think, again, the closer I got to the top, and even, in some volunteer work I do where I now get exposure and speak, but, have meetings with senators and reps, I really have had this veil lifted of how, we think these folks are also smart and geniuses. You said boy genius. I could go on and on about that. And so realizing that the bar, and this might be harsh, but the bar is set really low for men, or it's set incredibly high for us. Maybe that is where the bar should be, but that we're not there. And so realizing like, oh, this isn't as like genius as I thought. Like these folks that are in some cases running our country. I'm like, how are you in this seat? Right? Or entrepreneurs, how are you in this seat? And just kind of seeing that allowed me to observe like, okay, maybe I can have a different mindset in order to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think that, as you started taking a different approach, as you became a parent, as you sought out balance, as you kind of veered away from the traditional archetype of what it looks like to be a founder, how did people respond to that?
Well, women really positively. Once I was proving it out, which is pretty quick, as far as just like validation, like, though this can work. I think I started just I was like, I always told myself, I can prove this out, like, I'm gonna share it as loud as I can because I don't want anyone else to have those questions of like, "Can I do this? Is this really what it looks like?" And I just refused to. It didn't make sense, right? Sometimes we have to learn things, but also, if it really doesn't make any sense and you're trying to be objective, there's probably something there that you should continue to explore. And so that's what I did. And I think hearing other people say, oh, wow, that's how I feel. And then also just learning there's not just one profile for a founder and entrepreneur. And I think sometimes that profile is pushed because it excuses bad behavior, but also showing people you can be really successful and have it all and balance all of these things, right? Being efficient and all that matters, whether you're a parent or not. But I think it was really exciting just proving that out. And I think for other people, it was really exciting because, 6 years ago, I mean, honestly, people aren't talking about it enough now, right? But they definitely were talking about it then. And so when I would share that, there wasn't pushback. It was I felt that way too. I just didn't know. And so it really kind of created this openness to this secret club of everyone kind of wondering the same things and getting validation, by sharing that.
You described women around you feeling like they weren't sure if it could really work. They really weren't sure if entrepreneurship was like the archetype that they were seeing, but you're saying that you can have it all. Was there a time when you doubted that you could have it all?
There was a time where I got nervous that maybe that was not true. I remember just growing up and even into like kind of the peak of my career, right when I got pregnant with my daughter, my first child. I still was hearing, TV shows, other things like, listen, from women, you can't have it all. It's so much. Like that's my lesson. And I just remember feeling so bummed every time I heard that. But then also I remember when I got pregnant, like everyone was very excited. But it was like, you're at the peak of your career, like you might have just peaked, right? No one
Mm.
said that, but you're not going to be able to do what you're doing. This was before I started my company. And because it's just gonna be too much, and I was just looking for anyone that had kids to be like, "No, like, you totally got this. Literally, it's gonna make you better," or what and no one would say anything about that. They just be like, "You're gonna love being a mom." But that was about, like, it from positivity, and I remember, right, the day I was due to have my daughter, and I actually went into labor on my due date. I was getting a coffee at work at a coffee shop, and this woman in line, was like, "Oh my gosh, when are you due?" And I was like, "Actually, today." And she's like, "Well, get ready to never sleep again." Right? And I just remember, like, being so turned off by that, but I was like, "That's so unhelpful." But it's just there's so much negativity, like, whether you're gonna work, just becoming a parent in general, but let alone, like, if you wanna have a career, especially a successful one where you're a leader and rising star or whatever. And so I remember thinking, like, no one is saying this to me, and normally when no one is saying it or out loud, I'm like, I'm pretty, social, and I know a lot of people, like, is there some truth to this?
Mm.
Right? That crossed my mind for a second, and then I thought, "It doesn't make sense." I'm I'm very observant, have been that way my whole life since I was a little kid, and I just remember thinking, when something doesn't make sense, there's something more to it. So you're gonna go, you need to be your own cheerleader, have this baby, and you're going to show up and have all the things that you want. And when you prove this out, because I remember saying, like, I know that this is real. Like, I just know it is. You're going to shout it from the rooftops and to the point where people might even get sick of it. But so that way, hopefully, you can reach as many people as you can so that they can hear one woman saying, like, no, you can have it all. You can do all of these things. And what all looks like is different for everyone. But you're more than just your career. You're more than just a parent. You're more than just a friend. Like, we are nuanced and complex human beings, and we get to have more than just one identity.
It makes me think, I think it was Michelle Obama who was talking about this, and she said you could have it all, just not at the same time. And I wonder what your take is on that, or if you think that there's nuance to the idea of having it all, because it seems like such a big promise to have it all. Like, is there any nuance to that, or do you think it's really just possible to balance all of these things at the same time?
I love Michelle Obama. I don't always love comments like that, and I know what they're saying. You would be hard pressed to find anyone give advice to men like that, if there even is, right? I don't know of any. I've never heard it. No one is worried about their career and them having a family and them having friends. No one. And I think this is where women do this unintentionally. They're trying to be honest. Listen, being a mom is hard, but so is life. And there is not one journey you can take, whether you want to be a stay-at-home mom, whether you don't want to have kids, whether you want to focus on a career, whatever that is, whether you want to have all those things, that it's all going to be hard. And what I have found is that sometimes when people become parents, the challenges that they have beforehand, they can then start to blame on their children, right? Well, this awful job before now feels even worse because I have a kid. No, it's just now you're really seeing what's priority and that it was an awful job before and you don't have the space to manage awful anymore, right? And what all is not perfect. And I think that's where the message gets construed. You can't have having it all, like I do have it all. And my life is not perfect. And a lot of other women do too. I have a wonderful family, a wonderful business, friends, and a great career. All of those things have nuances and challenges in them, and I can still have it all, right? Time, being efficient and organized always matters. That is literally the key to having it all. I am less busy than a lot of my friends who don't have kids. Like I can plan out something to do as long as it's in advance and I organize on my calendar. And what I found is a lot of people don't have those skills. They overcommit themselves or they run a rat race, all of those things, spontaneous to the point where it's not, fun, right? And so those are really the underlying things that can happen, or they don't have support, or they don't know how to be their own support, right? Or the skill sets. But it's not about us being able to not, hey, you can't have a family, you can't have the career all at the same time. I know that's a long-winded answer, but I want to encourage women to stop making those statements because I know what they're meaning, but they're getting misconstrued in a way that's not helpful for us. And we need to encourage people to say, no, you can do this. You can do this. And what all looks like is different for everyone. But if you want to have all those things, you can. And they're not all going to be perfect, but no path you take will be. Right. So make it worth your while because that's what makes the journey wonderful because it's worth, it's all the things that you love and want to do. That's what makes the hard times worth it.
Yeah, I think it's a powerful reframe. There's a couple things in there. One being that all is different for everyone, that it's not literally all. And I
Yeah.
think that there is a little bit of ambiguity about that, especially in a world where we are hyper aware of what everyone else is doing because of social
Mhm.
media and the digital world and media. It's very tempting and easy to see what everyone else is doing and expand the idea of all past what actually matters to you and make all be about everything that everybody has, I will also have, right? Um,
100%.
and in that respect, maybe you can't have it all, but you can have everything that matters to you.
Yeah.
And I think that really illuminates another piece of advice that you were giving in there, which is about observation and gratitude and seeing everything you have and being grateful for it, even if it's not perfect,
Yep.
realizing what you have, like you may have a lot more than you think, but because it's not perfect, you're not acknowledging it.
Yep.
And also seeing those points that maybe you do feel negatively about or you do feel tension about, not as something to resent, but instead as
Right.
information about what's actually important to you,
Yeah.
pointing you in the direction of what all looks like to you.
100%. I was not like this growing up or even as a young adult, but I'm proud to say today, like, I'm really confident in who I am. And that is what, there's a lot of what I'm doing, having a business, have a family, and all of these things that look very much like what society would say is super successful. But when I take that, I'm like, these are things that I actually wanted, right? So I wasn't doing this to impress society. And I say this because as you know, a mature adult or matured adult, I've really gotten to a place over the last decade, but definitely the last like 6 to 8 years where I'm like, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And when you focus on what you really care about, that's where all those things start to work well. I think that's part of why I've had success is because I actually care about these things. I'm not trying to impress someone, right? To say, look at me being, I didn't even want to be an entrepreneur. It just happened, right? Naturally, because I was following my instincts and my passions and desires, and it just naturally leads you to the right places when you do that versus trying to force something, right? And even to this day now, I always say like I'm working hard so I can retire earlier. Someone came and gave me a deal I can refuse. I'd sell my business now, and people will go, "Oh, you'd be so bored." And again, it's just showing me like they're trying to put me into a box. It's not meant
Right.
to be. I'm like, no, I wouldn't. Are you kidding me? I would absolutely love, like, I would there's so many things I would do. I love interior design. I would go crazy in my house and building things and gardening and going to do stuff with my kids and working out and doing more volunteer work, which again, it sounds like another stigma setup. Like I genuinely like those things, right? So focusing on what you like and what you love is how you create your all, right? And it changes. What I'm doing now, I may not want to be doing and probably won't want to be doing in 10 years, right? So, as far as that, it's not all consistent and the same. And I think following that lead and really making sure that your insecurities aren't driving your next steps or how you go through things is really, really key because that's how you get that happiness. So,
Yeah, and I think it extends beyond insecurities and also into the shoulds, right?
yeah.
Where like when someone's telling you, "Oh, you'd be so bored," you're not letting that determine and shape your vision of your
100%.
ideal future. You're not saying, "Oh, well, maybe I should keep it. Maybe I would be bored. Maybe I shouldn't do the things that I think I would be happy with,"
Yeah,
and suddenly you're
100%.
you're you're ticking these items off the list that someone else gave you, right? And you're right back to
100%.
that problem of solving somebody else's problems, and I think having boundaries around what's actually important to you and what other people are trying to tell you should be important to you is so important in the idea of having it all.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm a part of some women Facebook groups for my county, we all have those. And it always, like, breaks my heart when women on there like, "I'm gonna have to get a job, like, I'm used to being a stay-at-home mom, like, should I try to find a way to be a stay-at-home? My husband has, like, said this, or this, and, I'm just really worried I'll miss out." And I live in Tennessee, so that might be part of why in a very, like, conservative area, but I will see, not all of them, but so many comments say, like, "You'll never get that time back. Figure out a way to stay at home. You'll regret it if you don't. Like, you can't do both those things." And I don't comment in there. Sometimes I'll message them individually because I don't wanna, like, start something, but I'm just like, How are we in 2024 and still saying that to women?" Like, what we're saying there is, like, your identity as being a mom. Once you become a mom, that's your identity, and that's
Mm,
that's how you're gonna be happy. That only if you are a good mom, once you become one, children are what are gonna be your identity and what are gonna give you purpose and what you're gonna care about. And that is the biggest lie
so
that has been
damaging.
told to women, the
Yeah.
biggest lie out there. And will they be the greatest loves of your life? Will it change in how you love and change some purpose and all 100%. But to say that you're just that one-dimensional is nuts, and that doesn't mean that you can be a stay-at-home mom and still be more than one, a stay-at-home mom, right? And so, that's not your only identity, and I just think there's still it's obvious to me and clear to me, there's still so much of that messaging, and so we just have to keep speaking about it to even out the other side that's sharing stuff that is it might be their experience or their opinion based on their systems, but I can confidently say is not true.
I think that message is going to resonate with so many of our listeners. And so I want to thank you for sharing that. And I know I'm going to be spending some time today reflecting on what having it all means to me and reframing what it means to build my life around that. So thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing your story, sharing that advice, because again, I think it's a really powerful thing that we all need to be reminded of.
Yeah, of course. I hope it's helpful. And look, I know it's not easy. I know, if you're working and there's a boys club and they're not supportive, like these things aren't easy, right? But a reminder that nothing you choose will be easy, right? Doesn't mean you should stay in a toxic situation. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but there is no road you choose that will be easy. Not having kids won't be easy. Having kids won't be easy. Having a career in kids won't be easy. So they're all not going to be easy, different, but not easy. Figure out which one or another scenario is going to make you happy, right? What do you want? Because that's going to help you get through the hard times. Because there's nothing worse than picking something because you thought it was going to be easier. And then that's where I see people spiral because they can't handle the hard because it's not even what they want to do.
Yeah, I think that's such important information to feel in yourself when something's hard and you don't want to do it versus when something's hard but you want to do it.
Yeah.
It feels so different in your mindset, in your body. It's just completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. So
Well, thank you for joining us, Krissy. This was such a wonderful conversation, and I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as I did. I got so much out of this, so thank you.
thanks, Ashley.
Before we end the episode, we want to take just a moment to reflect with you, our accomplished listeners, about what Krissy's story means to you. What's your definition of having it all? And what are the shoulds taking up your limited time and energy? If today's show inspired you, tell us. Send an email or voice memo to hello@wednesdaywomen.org. Or keep the ripple going by giving us a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your ratings help us grow and inspire even more people. This podcast is brought to you by Wednesday Women, an organization dedicated to increasing the visibility of women executive leaders. Learn more at wednesdaywomen.org. Thank you to our executive producers, Melissa Moody and Leslie Greenwood. Again, I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, hoping you'll keep the ripple going. Until next time.